Hello, and welcome to PM ProLearn. This is going to be the training for your PMP certification exam. Over the course of the next few days, we're going to go into many areas of the PMP learning process. For starters, in this first introduction, we're going to get into the process groups and some of the knowledge areas. The first process group is initiating. Initiating is the beginning of your project. That's where your project becomes a project. That's where it's born. That's where you have authorization to spend money to start working on the project. That's where people are assigned to some of the beginning areas of the project. The planning phase, that's where we talk about how we're going to plan to execute the project. How is it going to happen? In addition to the planning, there's also planning on how we're going to plan, and we'll dig deeper into that later in this course. Executing, that's where the work gets done. The work gets done by the folks that are doing the construction, the folks that are doing the software development, the folks that are doing the communication, equipment configuration, and getting ready to put things onto a customer's network, things like that. Monitoring and controlling, well, that's where the PM spends a majority of his time while the project is going on. The PM makes sure that the project is going to meet the schedule, scope, and cost. And the way to do that is to monitor and control the project. You've planned earlier in the project of how you're going to measure the results of the project, both the intermediate areas and towards the end of the project when the project is turned over to the customer. Monitoring and controlling is where you'll spend a lot of your time while the project is going on. It's where change requests will come. It's where you'll process those change requests. If those change requests cost more money from the customer, it's where you go to the customer and do a cost-benefit analysis and see if maybe we need to get a little bit more funding to implement this change. Is this change necessary? What are the risks if we do this change? What are the risks if we don't do this change? So we're going to dig into that quite a bit deeper as we get through our training process. And closing, that's where you hopefully get to the point where your project finishes and becomes what the vision was during your initiating process. What was it that the customer wanted? And when you close the project out, hopefully, and to the best of your ability, you're going to make sure that that project meets their needs on budget, within the scope of the project, or if there were changes, the scope can change during the project, and make sure that it was on time. And closing the project is also one of the very important parts of the project because we want to make sure that all the documentation, the lessons learned, everything was taken into account to where we can provide the customer with the best product that they could hope for with the amount of money that they gave us at the time. Hello, and welcome back. On this slide, we're going to talk about predictive planning and planning what needs to get done with your project. We're going to finish up by talking about the PM plan with the baselines. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there are many different areas that need to be planned. We need to plan schedule management and how that's going to work. We need to plan the scope management and how, if there's an increase or decrease in scope, how that's handled. We need to plan cost management. How, if the project goes a little bit above budget or stays within budget, we need to know these things. We need to plan the quality management. What makes a good quality product for this project? We need to plan the resource management. And that, you can see, comes out of the team charter. Within the team charter, we're going to be assigned resources. Those resources are going to be assigned as part of the team charter and how the project gets done. One of the things that we need to know is who to talk to when certain things need to be done, and or if it's a matrix organization, who their resource manager is. We're going to plan the communications management, the risk management, procurement management. If you're working a project that requires a fair bit of procurement, we need to know how long the timelines take for the procurements to get done, who needs to do the procurements, whether or not there's certain triggers at certain levels of the procurement process that need to go in. And very important at the bottom here is continuously, as you can see, continuously identify stakeholders. Stakeholders can change, but stakeholders are very, very important in your project, and they need to have the information that goes on so that they know what's going on with the project. So, the project management plan. As you can see across the top, we need to collect requirements, define scope, and create a work breakdown structure. We need to define the activities. We need to define the activities that need to be done so that we can create our work breakdown structure to create the scope baseline. We need to estimate the cost. How much is this project going to cost? A lot of those estimates for the cost are going to come from what the activities are, what needs to be done, how much are the hard supplies that need to be bought through procurement, and then we need to estimate resource activities. How long is it going to take for a certain group or a certain operation to do certain tasks? And then we move on to sequence the activities. How are these activities going to flow? You may know that when you're building a home that you can't put the roof on the house before the framing's done, and you can't do the framing before the concrete slab is done if you're in an area where you use concrete slabs. So there's certain activities that need to be sequenced, and estimate the duration of each one of those activities. Then you need to determine your budget, and your budget is going to be based on what your customer has agreed to provide you for this project, and does that budget fit within, or do your activities and your resources fit within the budget determined? That's going to bring you to your cost baseline. So your scope baseline, your schedule baseline, and your cost baseline is going to be your PM plan with your baselines. Hello and welcome back. During this slide, we're going to talk about a more agile approach when it comes to project management. As you can see on the left-hand side, we still have some of the same process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, control, and closing. What's new to this is some of the terms that we may not have seen earlier. A development team. This is typically your software team. This team is comprised of a self-organized team, never more than 12 members unless in extreme cases. Those are the people that are doing the software. Those are the people that are writing the code. Those are the people that are having the stand-up meetings on a daily basis to make sure that everybody understands what everybody's doing and what they're responsible for. The product owner is responsible for maximizing the value and manages or sets priority on the product backlog. This is the person that is in charge of deciding what the priorities are and what the scope is on the project. The Scrum Master is responsible for ensuring that the Scrum methodology is understood. This person is the one that runs the stand-up meetings or allows the stand-up meetings to be held and monitors them to make sure that they're going correctly. The sponsor is an internal senior manager who is the advocate and voice of the project, sometimes called the champion or the cheerleader. This is a person that is there to have your back and to make sure that you guys have everything you need, or your team has everything you need to get the project done. So you can see also here there's the charter commitment, customer commitment, and the charter development. So we have a vision or roadmap and a definition of done. Definition of done is probably a new term to a lot of people, to some people in this class. And the definition of done is something that needs to be taken care of before each phase or each step of the project, and so that everyone knows that when you get to a certain point that done is done. Done may be a certain level of achievement in the project. Done may be a complete level of achievement in the project. And you can see here in the Agile world, there is an iteration that goes through sprints. A sprint is a period of work that's done typically in 2 to 4 week phases. And during those 2 to 4 week phases, this is where the project team and the development team actually get the work done, the work that the product owner has set the priority for in the backlog. Customer concurrence is the most viable product and product backlog. The product owner is the one that sets the backlog priorities. The team commitment is set up into epics, features, and converted to user stories. User stories is what the team works off to decide what they need to get done or what they're going to be working on. The sprint backlog is made up of user stories and story points. The sprint backlog is what the team works from in their iterations to get to whatever the definition of done is for that particular iteration. And this is the sprint planning. Once the sprint planning is complete and the sprint backlog is set up and the priorities are set using various methods, there's planning poker, there's t-shirt sizes, there's lots of different ways to go about figuring out what the backlog prioritization is. At the beginning of a 2-week sprint and every day, we have a daily scrum. That's 15-minute max. Most people stand up for this. It's called a daily stand-up, and people will tell everyone what they're working on, what any resources they might need, and then after the daily stand-up, they get to work. A 2 to 4 week sprint is where the work gets done. After 2 to 4 weeks, the team will provide functionality, and they'll provide a demo for the product owner, and they'll review whether they've achieved the definition of done. And if they're done, then the project can be closed out. If not, and there's still more work to do and we haven't had a definition of done, and we review and we demo what has been done, we have a retrospective. A retrospective is something that happens after this sprint period, where the team gets together and they talk about everything that went right, and in some cases, things that didn't go right. And they plan for better improvements based on what they know and customer feedback that they got from the product owner. It goes back into the customer concurrence loop, and we come up again with another backlog that's prioritized once again by the product owner. It then goes back into another sprint if the final product is not done, and the product team, the development team, gets started again, and they move forward with another 2 to 4 week sprint. And this is done until they get to a completion in which the customer is happy with what's done, and the team has completed whatever their definition of done is, and they move on. In closing, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining this class. I hope you had a wonderful learning experience, and if there's anything that I can do to help after the class or during our breaks after we get done here today, I'd like for you to reach out to me and let me know what I can do to help, or our team back at PM ProLearn, that we can reach forward to you and see what you need to help you be most successful at passing your PMP exam. Good luck. Thank you.